This movie attempts to show how, after a dark and dreadful period, starting from the middle of the 19th century, when the only independent country in the Muslim world was being viciously attacked and its ramparts were being bombarded, it resisted and rebuilt itself. This story highlights a few major events that restored the sovereignty and dignity of the country. Most of these events were played out in the theatres of war in the region, and the actors were the noble sons of the land we now call Turkey. But a few important players emerged in a remote land, and certain epoch-making events took place nearly 5,000 kilometers away, which proved beneficial in shoring up the tottering Turkish state. These events included multiple medical missions to help the war wounded, countering propaganda against it, lobbying support for it in the international arena, putting political pressure on the British Raj, as well as funneling funds into the economy, and, importantly, laying down lives to uphold its cause. These events were mainly acted out in what is now called the subcontinent, through the length and breadth of it. The story is being told to inspire hope and confidence in the goodness and the resilience of the Muslim Ummah. The year is 1874, corresponding to 1294 of the Hijri era. The Orthodox Christian Balkan states have formed a confederacy and are rebelling against the Ottomans. With the active support of Russia, these Balkan states continue their concerted attacks against the Ottoman troops. They carry out savage massacres of the Muslim residents of their areas. The onslaught is severe. The Ottomans are forced to go on the back foot. News comes out that Turkey is suffering major setbacks in the battlefield. This news reaches a young Indian scholar in a sleepy town called Deoband, ending sleepless nights wondering what would happen if the bastion of Islam falls. This thought disturbs him no end. He starts by raising awareness among his fellow countrymen about the plight of the defenders of the Khilafah. He issues religious rulings in support of mobilizing funds to help the war efforts of his Turkish comrades. This young scholar is known today as Mohammed Qasim An-Nanawtawi. His biographer, another famous scholar, Manazir Ahsan Gilani, describes an event in his life which best epitomizes his concern for the Ottoman Khilafah. His biographer writes, on the very first night of his wedding, he, Imam Nanawtawi, spoke to his wife about the travails of the Ottoman forces who were combating insurrection in the Balkans, and how it was important to ensure the Ottoman Khilafah is not overrun by its enemies. The newly wedded bride is moved by the plight of the Ottoman soldiers and realizes the important role they were playing to keep aloft the banner of Islam. She gladly donates all her jewelry to support the Ottoman troops fighting in the Balkans. However, a few weeks later, when she went to visit her parents, her father noticed that she did not have on her any of the ornaments he gifted her for her wedding. On inquiring from her the reason and learning what transpired, he bought her another set of ornaments similar to the ones he had gifted her for her marriage. However, when she returned to her husband's home, bedecked with the new jewelry her father had given her, Imam Nanawtawi narrated to her the reverses being faced by the Ottoman forces and how each penny would be critical in helping them confront their enemy. Again, moved by the account she heard from her husband, she readily donates all her ornaments to support the Ottoman forces. In the year 1874, Imam Mohammed Qasim An-Nanawtawi wrote a religious decree or a fatwa for supporting the Ottomans against the Balkan states and the Russian Empire. A report or rudad was compiled detailing the efforts of the ulama for collecting funds to support the mujahideen in the Balkans. These mujahideen or warriors were part of the Ottoman Empire and were fighting a war against the Russian-sponsored aggression on the Balkan territories of the Ottoman Empire. Imam Nanawtawi wrote a detailed treatise in Farsi or Persian in which he explained the importance of this war, including the need to support the Turk-Ottoman army and especially to provide them financial support. This treatise was translated in different languages and was published in numerous newspapers and magazines. It also got vibrant support from the Ottoman Empire. In this report, letters from Nanawtawi and officials, including the Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, are described. This report is a fine example of how Nanawtawi, his disciples, and his colleagues were engaged in a conversation with the high officials of the Ottoman Empire, and the manner in which the Ottoman Empire acknowledged the support received. In the first phase, this report mentioned Russian attempts on Turkish Ottoman territories and its negative impact, including the killings of Muslim men, women, and children in those territories. Later, this report mentions the importance of the Caliph's authority and why this is crucial for the safety and dignity of the two holy shrines of Islam in Mecca and Medina. This report, or Ar-Rudad, forecasted the global harm to the Muslim community if the Muslim community did not have a central authority. This centrality exists due to the Caliph's regime it mentioned. Hence, to support the Caliphate is must and compulsory, he stressed. It is a religious obligation and duty which every Muslim must fulfill, he averred. If this centrality is lost, the entire Islamic world will face severe consequences, he prophesied. After the success of the first step, Imam Mohammed Qasim An-Nanawtawi motivated his disciples and colleagues for raising the second step, and this was to join the Mujahideen and the Turkish forces in the Balkans. However, in contrast to the public call of financial support by everyone, call to fight shoulder to shoulder with the Turk forces was not made public. In the opinion of Imam Nanawtawi and his colleagues, the most important task during this period was to support Ottoman troops against aggressions being carried out by the Christian Balkan states and the Russian Empire. This task of extending unstinted support to the Ottomans, the scholars asserted, is more important than building mosques and supporting educational institutions. Supporting the troops of the Khalifa according to Imam Nanawtawi, will boost the morale of the Ottoman troops and will not make them feel abandoned in their struggle against their enemies. They will realize, he asserted, that their Muslim brothers in India are with them in their hour of difficulty. Apart from Imam Nanawtawi, the other people who were involved in collecting funds for the Ottoman army were Ahmad Ali Muhaddis of Saharanpur, Mazhar Nanawtawi, and the great jurist and friend of Imam Nanawtawi, Rashid Ahmad Gangohi. The funds collected were delivered to the Ottoman embassy in Bombay. This amount was sent in several installments. The collection was not confined to the town of Deoband. On the behest of Imam Nanawtawi, the fund collection had become a national movement. Muslims, rich or poor, from different parts of the country were raising funds with zeal and enthusiasm. This zealous effort was aimed at protecting the integrity and honor of the central Muslim leadership. The total amount collected and delivered to the Turkish embassy in Bombay reached 1.2 million rupees of those times. The list of donors and the amounts received were published in the form of a report by the Ottoman embassy in Bombay. It was called the Daftar-e-A'inat Hindiya. The then Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, Ibrahim Adham, sent a letter of thanks to Imam Nanawtawi and the other elders of the Madrasa Islamiyya Arabiya Deoband.
Apart from the letters of appreciation received from the Ottoman ruler and his ministers, the crowning glory was the gift of the Khirqah Mubarak from the Ottoman Sultan to the Deoband Madrasa. Khirqah Mubarak or Khirqah Mubarak, it is pronounced Khirqah in Arabic, and in Persian and Urdu it is pronounced as Khirqah. The Khirqah is a blessed piece of cloth used to wrap the cloak of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, kept in a museum in Istanbul. The Khirqah Mubarak was gifted by the then reigning Ottoman Sultan, Muhammad V, to the Darul Uloom in Deoband, UP, India, in recognition of the financial contributions made by the scholars of Darul Uloom to the war efforts of the Ottomans during the Balkan Wars. The image you see here is a letter that was released by Darul Uloom Deoband in connection with the Khirqah Mubarak. What follows is a translation of the message from Darul Uloom Deoband. This blessed piece of cloth or rumal had been attached to or wrapped around the robe of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. The letter goes on to say, it is a gift from the Ottoman Empire. The sultans of Turkey used to have the honor of viewing the Prophet's robe each year, which is still preserved in the Topkapi Museum in Istanbul. This gift was in recognition of the financial support received from Darul Uloom Deoband during the Balkan Wars in 1913, corresponding to 1332 Hijri. The then Sultan of Turkey gifted this blessed artifact to Darul Uloom. What you see here is a poem in praise of the Holy Prophet, which is inscribed on the Khirqah Mubarak. A free translation of the Persian poem in praise of the Prophet adorned on the Khirqah Mubarak is as follows. Reached us with honor the light of guidance, send salutations on him, salutations galore, the fragrance from his cloak is like that which emanated from the garment of Yusuf. This is Khirqah Pak, in which was enveloped the cloak of Ar-Rasul.
Selamun Aleyküm. Khalid Nur. This is Yusuf Ziya Kavakçı, Ankara, Turkey. There are two khirqas of Prophet in Turkey. One is in Topkapı Museum called Khirqah-i Saadet, which was officially kept and visited with ceremonial way, and also 24-hour Quran is recited in the presence by 40 Hafiz. It is brought from Egypt 1517 by Yavuz Sultan Selim. Second khirqa is in Istanbul also. That is called Khirqah-i Sharif. That khirqa is bequeathed by Dan Wasiyya, by will, by the Prophet, to be given to Uwaisul Qarani, who came from Yemen to visit the Prophet, but could not see. He was out of town, the Prophet, so he returned back without seeing. The Prophet did wasiyya that took off his khirqa is sa'adat, and to be given. So he passed away, the Prophet. Then Umar took this to the Mecca Hajj time and announced that, is there anyone from Yemen, Qaran village? They said yes, so he delivered this as amana to Uwaisul Qarani. His grave is in the east part of Turkey. He was not married. When he passed away, this khirqa was transferred to, inherited by his brother Shahabuddin Qarani. Then from father to son, 200 years ago, a mosque is built, like 1860s, by Sultan Abdul Majid Khan in Istanbul, called Khirqah Sharif Mosque, a special mosque. The family who was keeping that brought, and a residence, big residence for them also built. That mosque holds this khirqa. I was muezzin there, 57 to 64, 65. I did my middle school, high school, and university, and PhD, everything, when I was muezzin over there in Istanbul, Khirqah Sharif. And I met the Hashim Bey, who was that time, 1960s, head of the family, and his daughter also is psychiatrist. Gülşen Hanım, I know them, I met them. This khirqa is visited by the people, I think 15 of Ramadan, every day, beginning 10 a.m. every day in Ramadan, last 2 weeks of Ramadan. So this is the story, two khirqas. This khirqa, Uwaisul Qarani khirqa, is mentioned in Bukhari.